be thoughts. I
I've got a
think that.
quick one.
Oh, Johnny's got one. Good.
Um, all right. It's not much to show off here, just because I don't want to make this demo very long. But I've added the concept of a cache policy to a model. So you can define several of these on your model. So I have one here, which is basically forever, where the max cache age is 24 hours. I have another one, which is basically don't cache, which is just a name, where the max cache age is 5 minutes. You can set on the model a default cache policy. So in this case, I'm doing it basically forever. So any query that comes from this model that is not overridden will use the basically forever. So we'll stick in a cache for 24 hours. However, so that'll include parse SQL queries, regular SQL queries, and anything that doesn't come from a topic with an override. I also have this fast users topic where I have an override cache policy for basically don't cache. So that will only stick around for 5 minutes. And I think that's really all there is to it. There's still a little bit of testing that I am putting in place, but and I need to figure out that I do have something that I'm figuring out with requery right now. Front end requery, it will still let you requery an older result that you already have in your browser. So while that's something we actually likely want to make configurable in the future, or may want to consider making configurable, so someone could say maybe it's okay to do a resort or something like that, but it's not okay to necessarily pull data that's too old. But then again, maybe we don't want to allow you to configure that because if you don't want old data, you don't want old data. So definitely something still playing with me to figure that last bit out. But otherwise, relatively straightforward. If you don't have a default cache policy on the model, it will suddenly do this. Basically, resolves back to the default of 6 hours. And then if you do things like, say, spell some stuff wrong, thing, um, you should get some warnings here. It's saying that basically don't cache policy is not valid, and then the cache policy that you're using here on the topic is also not valid. And maybe it's a little bit extra information, but also it's a little bit funky if you're maybe doing things in different places and not necessarily noticing why it's one is not working. If you have an invalid cache policy, it's not going to block any queries. It will let you still run the queries, but will use the defaults sort of cascading down. So if say this one here is not working, it will use the model's default cache policy. The model's one either doesn't exist or is broken, it will use the sort of base cache policy. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, and just this is obvious, but because we have models in workbooks, it means that a given dashboard or workbook can actually have a different cache policy than the rest of the environment, which is very, very cool and powerful. Like even a single tile on a dashboard could have a different cache policy. So there's a lot of power just in the sort of elegance of the layering of models here.
It is very
Even
cool to be able to talk about all of that from like step one of having configurable caching. Like that was really awesome.
Yeah, like even a query, we could put it in the query model. It's a little crazy, but like there's essentially infinite configurability here, which is awesome.
Another
And
thing
is
I have to look at is
this,
exactly how these things layer. That's still what to do, but
yep,
so like I'm not entirely sure if right here. There's only one property right now. If you since it's max cascade, so they don't really have any way to conflict with each other because they're just going to stomp over the one property that's defined. However, it is definitely like we're interested in investigating other types of policies that aren't as simple as this one. So maybe ones that trigger with an ETL cycle or ones that maybe an API like the one Chris was showing would reset cache or something like that. So you can have your I don't know, DBT run, hit our API and wipe our cache or something along those lines so that you're not going to get old data after an ETL cycle.
And this hits both the requery cache and the query cache.
It will when I can finish it.
Okay.
Yeah. It does in several places.
The
It
theory of
doesn't
it
in
does that,
one. Yeah.
yes.
The idea
But it
is
will
that
do.
it will.
Okay.
It will not give you, if you say 5 minutes, it will not give you data that's older than 5 minutes.
Cool.
Right now, 5 minutes is the minimum. And also 24 hours is the maximum. That's probably okay for the time being. Maybe we want to make that longer. It will require a little bit more work to support longer cache times.
Is at least in some cases you can imagine a way of turning it off as like a zero limit cache too? Is that would that work, or is there?
I muted myself. Yes, it doesn't currently work. It's something that like we may want to allow people to do. There's definitely something to be said for disabling cache completely. It's not going to disable how we deliver results, but it will disable how we store results.
Totally.
And for caching and sort of the shareability between results, between two queries. So if you come back or another user comes back, you theoretically can disable that cache between those requests. I didn't want to dive too deep into it now. I'm not 100% sure that there's things that don't rely on that in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a possibility if people are interested in that.
And so the menu set now is a minute, essentially, or is it 5?
5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely like
that's fine.
The
It's totally
experience
good.
becomes
No, no.
lame if you can't cache at all. But like,
No. It's
especially
not even worth
showcase
thought
some of
at this point. Like
yeah.
that is sufficiently short.
Yeah, and this is already like such a powerful feature too, just based on the compositional way we compose the model. So this is awesome.